bring you this now. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga is expected to announce the Matric results for the class of 2020 this very afternoon. Now, the Matric class of 2019 achieved a pass rate of 81.3%. This up from 78.2% back in 2018. We talked to an education expert from the University of Johannesburg, Professor Mary Metcalf, about what to expect. Prof, always good to have you, and thank you so much for joining us this very morning. Now, I mean, we've seen the numbers of 2019 compared to 2018. We know that last year was just a different year for the class of 2020. What do you think we should expect, especially with the challenges with which the pupils had to face?
Well, the first thing is that all of my interactions with schools across the country, what I have seen is huge commitment from schools to support the class of 2020. We've seen Woza Matrics introduced. We've seen learners being able to access material that's been broadcast. And we know that the class of 2020, the schools, they return to schools much earlier than everyone else. And when they returned to school, they were there every day. Now, that's going to be different for next year, but that doesn't mean there weren't problems. And the main problems will have been that for learners who lost so many weeks and months of time and weren't able to study effectively at home, not only because of reasons of lack of access to Wi-Fi and having devices, but also because many homes which are overcrowded, in which multiple generations live, learners don't have their own space. Now, there's not enough resources at home and it's hard. So I think what we need to look out for is how many matric learners of 2020 disengaged during the year, may not have written. How do we retrieve those learners? What has been the effect of the pandemic on inequality?
With that being said, do you think we need to be concerned about the quality of the results given the numerous challenges with which they had to face?
No. The quality in terms of the standard from one year to the next is protected by the quality assurance body, Umalosi. So it means that the class of 2020 will be able to say, my NSC has the same value as any other year. Now, what that means is that because the standards will not have dropped, perhaps there may be fewer learners who achieve as highly as we might have expected without the pandemic. So we need to look for how many learners excelled, what has been the impact in terms of the number of students passing at the higher level, not just how many distinctions, but students passing with a good pass. What has been the impact in terms of the quintiles of the poorer schools? And are we losing learners? Those are all system issues that we're going to be facing for the next 3 years.
So that's just the class of 2020 that we're talking about. But I want to touch on the class of 2021. You've reminded us that this is the very same class that was in grade 11 last year. And just like the matriculants last year, they missed some classes. They had to adapt to e-learning. They too had their fair share of classes, which I understand that they might have missed, well, they may not have completed the entire curriculum. They may need to catch up now on those gaps. What challenges do they face in their matric year this year?
It's a very important question, and I think that it should take front stage in public debates. You see, the class of 2020 had a complete grade 11 year. This year's class did not have a complete grade 11 year. Firstly, they returned to school very late after the lockdown. And then when they returned, they were on an alternating either daily or weekly attendance. So they have lost a huge amount of the grade 11 curriculum, and the estimates of that vary. But I'm in working with schools, I'm told by many schools that they need at least another 2 or 3 or 4 weeks this year to just catch up what wasn't learned last year. This year's class comes in from a weaker foundation of grade 11. And we know from the scientists that we may be experiencing another surge in winter. Now,
So-
what that means is if we have another lockdown, that will have implications. Now, given the fact that the majority of our learners are not always able to learn effectively at home, I think we need community structures,
Right.
faith communities, step up.
All right, Prof, that's where we leave it. But thank you so much for talking to us on this very important issue this morning, Professor Mary Metcalf.